Hello, my name is Dan Skipbound, and this is the Top 5 Weekly. We were on a little bit of a hiatus due to the holidays and due to some extenuating circumstances, but I am back with a vengeance. And this has been an episode I've been planning for quite a while, looking for the right person. I really did get a good person for this because this person has as much love of the topic as I do. Because there's two films out in theaters right now or on VOD right now for A24 Films. Finally get to talk about A24 Films, and I couldn't ask for anybody better than Aaron J. How you doing, Aaron? Welcome.
Hey, good to be here. When A24 is in these communities, I'm the person who gets called, and I'm very proud of that. Got my Aaron 24 tag on today, because we're here to talk A24, and I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's such a great company, and they really have championed so many little independent filmmakers and so many small little films that are just amazing films, and that's what's great about A24.
Yeah, it's the spirit of the 70s filmmaking brought to 2020, I think. In this decade, I just think the freedom to allow their filmmakers to take chances, not always hit, which, maybe even in our top fives, we may talk about, you may have something. Although there's one or two A24 movies that have ever been made that I truly dislike, if I'm being honest. That's how good they've done, though. For the most part, I can find something to appreciate about their movies. And the number one thing is allowing freedom of the artist to make what they want to make. So,
yeah. And then, and they've been in business just long enough now where they're working with the same directors over and over again.
There's a reason. These guys come back for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, you're seeing amazing directorial debuts. Several of my top five are directorial debuts, and that's just amazing. These are some of my favorite movies ever.
Yeah. No, I've been watching movies for 40 years, and I'll tell you what, I can really enjoy these types of movies. They really are my jam, even though I do like a lot of different kinds of genres. And I've been watching movies for a long time. These are the movies I look forward to. When I know a new A24 film is coming, I'm salivating, waiting for it. We're talking off air about why we're doing this is Minari and Saint Maud, two films. Yeah. I heard about Minari at last year's Sundance Film Festival, and I had heard about Saint Maud. And of course, with the quarantine and the COVID and all that kind of stuff, these films, we didn't get to see these films till very recently. But we both finally got to see them both.
Yes, we did. Yep.
So that is a good thing. So without further ado, let's get into it. You're the guest. You get to go first, and can't wait to see what you got.
All right. So we're going with number 5 here. I'll have plenty to talk about with the honorable mentions. My number 5 could be one of so many movies, honestly, just because it really was tough. Today, it is A Ghost Story, directed by David Lowery.
And honorable mentions.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I'm going to probably be saying the same thing for your 5 and, everything like that. But, yeah, this is just such a gorgeous meditation, and I know that seems very pretentious, but I don't take pretentious as a insult either. I think that being pretentious about your art isn't a bad thing. So I think this is a very a meditation on grief, and just how grief is something that transfers over time. And there's just certain places that seem to have a heaviness to them. You've been in certain houses or certain areas where there just feels to be a heaviness, and that's really portrayed in this movie. I don't want to spoil too much of it for people who haven't seen it, but there's just the music is amazing. The song, if you don't like that song, you're going to hate this movie. The I Get Overwhelmed song. I love that song. I'll walk around listening to it once in a while still. But it's just a really beautiful movie. David Lowery is a director I really am a huge fan of. He's really a patient and thoughtful director. And he makes all sorts of really great movies. And I think this is probably my favorite of his. But yeah, it just the first time I saw it, I hadn't seen time portrayed in that way before, and just really has stuck with me. It's been one I've actually revisited. Not the most entertaining, quote unquote, but I think it's really immersive and enthralling. So yeah, A Ghost Story.
Well, how many years ago did A Ghost Story come out?
I'd say probably 2016 or 17.
Yeah, so you're really not spoiling anything by talking about it. Casey Affleck, I'm a big fan of Casey Affleck.
Yeah,
I'm obviously the hat probably tells you a lot about that.
sure.
But there's a scene in the movie involving a pie.
Yes.
Great, one of the best scenes you'll see in recent memory. Watch if you want to see this movie, see it just for that. Just because
There's just and it's just it's a very patient movie. It's one that you got to turn your phone over and not look at your phone, which is hard for my generation to do. And so it gets labeled with the B word, boring, which almost never is a movie when it's labeled boring actually boring. I'm starting to realize there's just boring people and they can't kind of stick with little patience of silence, being in the moment. The pie scene is not just a gimmick. It's done for an intention and to bring you into Rooney Mara's world at that point in the movie. And, we've all been struck with the grief bug at some point in our lives with a personal loss, and so I think it just feels very authentic. And I think it's a classic. It's a classic. It's Malekian, it's other words for sure. It is an ode to, I think, a Terrence Malick movie, but I think almost better than any of his stuff, if I'm being honest.
Great cinematography. And I'm a big, if you've known me long enough, when I write a lot of my reviews, I'm a film critic. I really will champion good cinematography in films because it's such a hard thing to do to come up with great cinematography. And A Ghost Story has some of the great. It just has a ton
of A24 does, and we'll talk about it more. And it's these aren't these huge Marvel budgets either, and they got better cinematography to them because you can do more with less.
Yep. No, you're right about that. All right. So my number 5 is it's a little film from a couple of years ago. I'll tell you what, I want another film that you hear about. A lot of these A24 films, you hear about them at Sundance, and you're like, oh my God, this is getting all. I got to see this film, and sometimes it lives up to the hype, and sometimes it doesn't. But this one really did, in my opinion, because it kind of deals with what we're doing now, what you and I are doing right now. We're talking into a camera, into the internet, and we're expressing ourselves. And sometimes the people we are on camera isn't necessarily the people we are off camera. Mm-hmm. And Eighth Grade really is a delightful movie about this girl trying to find herself, and she uses the internet and Gucci and all these things to express herself. But this isn't who she is, and she's kind of dealing with some things. There's a scene where she's walking. She was invited to a birthday party at this house, and it was a pool party, and she's
oh God, that's such a uncomfortable and it's so authentic that scene. And not being creepy with a potentially creepy scene if it was not directed correctly. Seriously, Bo Burnham to take on I don't mean to, and I'll let you get, but Bo Burnham to take on a children's pool scene with kids in bikinis and kids in swimsuits. And as a male, it is sticking to authenticity of there's a shot behind of Elsie where it shows, just her bad, body posture and everything, just her dreading walking out the screen door. But yeah, Bo Burnham, huge fan.
This to me, coming of age films are a genre that sometimes they could just go completely wrong, and then sometimes they can just go phenomenal. But the phenomenal ones are very far and in between. And I think Eighth Grade really gets that age, that middle school angst of a kid that not trying to find out who you are, going into high school as a 9th grader and trying to figure out your place in the over hierarchy of a high school. And it is not an easy thing to do. And then have to also deal with your parents not being too overbearing and whatever, picking on and getting involved in too much of your life. And there's a great father in this. The father is, I can't think of the guy's name. You probably have it memorized.
No, I'm blanking on it right now too, but I can pull it up for you.
Yeah, the father is really good in this. But I really enjoyed Eighth Grade for being as authentic and real as a coming of age film could be, and that's
it was
why
Josh Hamilton, by the way, as the father.
Hamilton
Yeah,
really does a great job as the father. I love.
Yeah, and he hasn't done much since
No.
this movie, so that's part of why it was kind of a problem, why we couldn't remember his name.
Yeah.
He hasn't done anything, and that should change. But maybe A24 will come back for him. But the car scene also has to be brought up. I think it's a super important scene, and how that's handled again, not being used for shock, it's authentically presented, and this is like my generation when I grew up. Like, I can identify, and I can tell you, this is pretty much how it was with, like, I was like the first kind of kids growing up with, like, teenagers with the internet, like, widely accessible when I was, like, in middle school and whatnot. So it's like, this is how kids were with it. And, like, yeah, it's really a great choice.
Yeah. All right. So let's go to your number 4.
My number 4 is a movie I actually saw not when it came out, and it took me a little while to see it, but it's 20th Century Women. And I just adore this movie. I was raised by a single mother. My father died when I was 3 years old. My mom never remarried. And my mom became a life coach, a yoga teacher, like 7 other things. And the woman who's played in this movie by Annette Bening reminds me so much of my mom. That it just made this movie. I was introduced to this character, and right away I was connected fully into it. And then all of the characters surrounded in this movie just, I think, put up amazing performances. Elle Fanning, not brought up enough as a good actress, but she just is really, really good in this. I don't really know why this movie isn't seen by more people, but I do have my theory, which is that a lot of people are kind of sexist, men specifically, and they see a 20th Century Women title and they think, oh, I can't possibly watch this movie. I can't relate to it. I'm not a woman. And it's just, I'm not interested. Let me watch Goodfellas for the 50th time. And it's just like, because I get that it's men, I'm supposed, and I just think that's like the central character in the movie is a young man who's raised by women and having to still become a man and have that masculine identity and have that masculine point of view when he doesn't have the real life man in his life. And that is my life growing up. I was surrounded by women my entire life. I was raised by women. I didn't have the real life masculine identities to model my life around. So it's like, I had to figure that out too as I got older. And it's just like being a highly sensitive while still being a young man and having the need. It's just like, it's all nailed here by the director who also wrote the movie, and Mike Mills. And I just thought he put on, I believe this was his directorial debut. I just think this is one that not enough people have seen. And it's just, and I think that it's not a woman's movie, whatever that would mean, but like, it's really not, it's for everybody. And it's great cinematography again. In this movie, really gentle moments.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have a close buddy of mine who works with me very closely on the website that I write for, and he's a huge, huge fan of this. And I have told him, and I'm going to tell you right now and tell everybody that watches this, I am not the biggest fan of 20th Century Women, but I do understand how it's relatable for people like you who have grown up in a single parent household with a mother and all these different things. My background was quite different than this. Yeah. And so it wasn't relatable for me, but I can't sit here and say, well, just because it wasn't relatable to me and it wasn't as enjoyable for me, doesn't mean it's not a great film. I mean, Billy Crudup is a guy that I always gravitate towards because I know this guy's a good actor. He just, sometimes you just see, you're like, where is Billy Crudup gone? Sometimes he popped up in this and I liked him in this, but you have a perspective that really shows why you love this film. And that's one of the great things about A24 is they have films for everybody, you know? And they're not just shoehorned into any one genre, any one age group, any one religious background or whatever. Their films are for everybody, and that's what's so great about this studio. And
yeah, and when you visit them at different points in your life, they definitely come at differently. And with how much things are changing at this point, a different point in your life can be like 6 months ago. With how it doesn't have to be years and years for your perspective on a lot of these things that change. And some of my favorite movies I don't directly relate to, and some of them I do. And some of the movies I hate, I directly relate to. And it's like, it's not for, I think too often people get into that realm where they need to relate to everything they like. And it's like, that's not necessarily the case. And I really do believe the title keeps a large amount of men from seeing this movie, which is just stupid. But I do think it's true.
Yeah.
Like they see 20th Century Women it's on Netflix, it's on Amazon Prime, it's been everywhere, it's been out for 5 years. There's not an accessibility issue. It's not like that Charlie Sheen one from whatever, which is terrible anyways. But it's like, this is fully accessible. It's on Netflix right now, people. Like, check it out, please. Like, and if you don't like it, okay, you're gonna have some impact from it at the end of the movie.
Well, another movie that's accessible, it's on Hulu right now, is a movie that I could really relate to, in the fact that I'm not a priest, but I was religious when I was younger, and I had an existential crisis as an adult, trying to go towards religion and Jesus and the Lord, and so trying to find some answers for myself. Of course, they didn't have the answers for me, but even though you're a priest, doesn't mean you can't have things in your brain saying, this isn't right, this is wrong, why is life like this, why, and the ending of the movie First Reformed is very graphic. It's very just, you don't expect it. I mean, I guess you do expect it as you're watching the movie. You kind of expect.
You just don't expect them to go through with it.
Say that again.
You just don't expect them to really go through with it, though. Like, and see
the title is misleading because it's the name of a little church. So there's not really any inclination that, well, what's going to happen at the end is going to happen. And I tell you what, I think Ethan Hawke is incredible in First Reformed. Amanda Seyfried, who is getting some love this year for Mank, and Cedric the Entertainer is entertaining as a big like church pastor guy, and it's like, wow, he couldn't have been better cast as one of these guys that's a pastor of a big church, evangelist type of church. And just finding, I love the questions that the main character asks, and then finding the answers and looking for the answers and trying to figure out the answers of where he is going with himself and in life and so forth. And I'm a big fan of Paul Schrader. I absolutely love his films from the 70s. Raging Bull, Taxi Driver are just two of my favorite films of all time. And he really gets me as a film fan, a film aficionado. He knows the kind of things to come up with, and he directed and wrote First Reformed. But I'll tell you what, I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely a fan of this movie. I think there are just at times maybe things that in this is my own perspective, but like maybe that I had come across maybe as a little bit try-hardy, or like a little bit kind of like edgelord material from like Paul Schrader, which I thought he was maybe a little above. Sorry, Chico's gonna bark a little for a second.
A little preachy. His scripts are a little preachy.
And sometimes it's just like old man who like clicked on an article like he saw on like his Facebook, and he's like, "Did you know like this about global?" So like there's a couple times where I was like, "This really feels like an old man like typing out his like druthers about the world," which it will come across, which it is, but like it did ironically come across a little preachy at a few points, which is what would keep it from even like an honorable mention for me amongst the A24 movies. Still a great movie, and like one I would literally go and rewatch at any point. And I agree, Cedric the Entertainer's performance, I think, is just absolutely fantastic in this. I love seeing these comedic actors take on these dramatic roles. Not A24, but Judas and the Black Messiah. Lakeith Stanfield keeps showing I can act. Like, give me real. I mean, him in Atlanta, he's incredible too. Everything he's in, Lakeith Stanfield, everything. Just put him in everything. But sorry to jump around there, but it's like with First Reformed, I do think it's really good, and for the most part, it doesn't feel like an old man wrote this movie. So I don't mean, but it does feel very contemporary and very modern, actually. So I do. It's a guy who's been in the industry for 50 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, that whole subplot about the environment and stuff. I mean, that's talking to millennials and people like that. It really is. So, but all right, let's go to your number 3.
All right. Well, this is where it gets really tough. My 1 and 2 are really, really set, and then it's like my 3 through everything else. It's like, which one? But I gotta go with one that I feel when I first saw it, I knew I loved it, but it's one that I had to kind of revisit a few times to really, really fully get in, like get it as like I feel like an all-time classic. So I'm gonna go with The Witch, Robert Eggers' masterpiece, horror masterpiece. It's written, the writing of it, the amount of effort put into this dialogue just kind of blows me away, honestly. I did buy the script off A24's shop, and it's the only script I've ever read, but I just am so blown away with how perfectly intricate it's written and just directed, even just the script. And then the way it's photographed, it's just amazing. It just, like, the way the trees feel like they're like kind of the score, when the score is used, it feels like the trees are almost like singing. It's just so creepy. It honestly feels like it could have been made in the 50s, the 40s, the 30s. It just is. And I love the ending. Honestly, I love that they show you right away the witch taking the baby. I love that it's not about that part of the mystery exactly, and it's more about this family unraveling. And the father figure, it reminded me of The Shining in the best ways. Just all these horror masterpieces. And Black Phillip is, I think, one of the greatest horror antagonists of all time. He's such a dick, and he's just those twins are insanely creepy. It birthed us Anya Taylor-Joy, who is a gift to cinema, and she's going to continue to be for like 50 years. You can just see her being able to gracefully portray so many different characters. Her, Zendaya, we have so many killer actresses coming up right now. I'm wondering where the boys are going to be at to help out, because it's Timothée Chalamet, and then who else? It's like, who else but women, we have some amazing talents. Florence Pugh, these huge talents we'll talk about later, I'm sure. But yeah, this movie, to me, top to bottom, incredible performances, haunting imagery, and just, I mean, it just firmly implants itself in the horror pathos right away. I mean, it just stands with all these other great horrors of all time.
Yeah, The Witch was one of those films that I really had to watch multiple times before I got it, because it was really confusing for me the first time I watched it. But the one thing that did stand out, like you said, was Black Phillip and Anya Taylor-Joy. She is fantastic. I was like, I want to see her again and again and again. And this year we've got to see her a little bit. She was in 2 movies and a miniseries on Netflix, so we got to see a lot of Anya Taylor-Joy on streaming services and stuff like that in theaters. But this guy, his 3rd movie now, that seems like my jam. Oh, I'm just hoping.
I've loved all of his. Both, he's 2 for 2 for me, for sure. Lighthouse and Witch, that's 1A, 1B. Honestly, I could put them both at my number 3. The Lighthouse is such an incredible theatrical experience. Literally felt like I mean, the reason Edgar's is so great, he started from the bottom. He started as a production set assistant designer, and you can tell he cares about the craft first and foremost, but the craft of the writing too, not just the set, not just the costumes. It's the writing, the language, the character work. I mean, it's just this was his directorial debut. The Witch was his directorial debut. And it's just like, I'm sorry for people who watch trailers and get false expectations. If you do that, you're going to hate a lot of A24 movies because their trailers don't match the movies. I don't watch trailers before I go to movies, so that's not my issue. But like, I know a lot of people, when I first saw The Witch, when it was done, they were like booing halfway through. They're laughing at parts you weren't supposed to laugh at because they just were like, this is boring. This is like, it's a patient, old school, well-crafted horror though. And it's just like what I'm looking for.
No, you're right. Yeah. A24 has really done that a lot with their horror movies. There aren't this fantastic gore, crazy horror movies. They're these little character pieces that just bring you the frights and the chills and whatnot. And The Witch is one of those. And Lighthouse is another one that's a little creepy and a little weird.
Little gross.
Yeah. So he's Northman. Oh, I cannot wait for the Northman.
Yeah, it's going to be epic.
I think he finally got a budget, and who knows what that's going to end up being like.
He's not going to waste a cent of it whatever he gets, he hasn't and he won't. I mean, he loves the craft. Him and another director we're going to talk about here soon.
Well, I think we already got to that director right now, Aaron. I'll tell you what. And I'm going to be honest with you. I am not the biggest fan of horror because I don't get scared in horror movies. I just don't get scared. Nothing scares me. I could watch the news, and there's more scary stuff watching the news or I could read in the newspaper than actually watching in horror movies that have been coming out the last however many years. But this guy, his name is Ari Aster. He has put out two of the most scariest movies I have seen in a long, long time. But the first one I'm going to talk about at my number 3 is, and if you have it further down, just let me know. It's called Hereditary.
This is an honorable mention. I have the other one.
Okay. Hereditary. I'll tell you what, you have a scene where a girl gets decapitated about a fourth through the movie. You're watching this movie, and I know it's going to be scary. I'm prepared for this movie to be scary. Yeah, but I am not prepared for a girl to be decapitated a third through the movie. And that really got me like, holy crap, what the hell am I watching here? And then just the craziness with the rest of the families. What's his name? Something Alex Fox is the kid's name or something?
Alex Wolff. Yeah, Alex Wolff. Yeah. Wow.
He's incredible in this.
That scene, it's not just the scene with the head, but it's his reaction afterwards. Yeah. And Toni Collette, we don't need to say no more. She wasn't nominated.
She got
biggest snub of the last 10 years, has to be.
I mean, she's been in two of the greatest horror movies of all time with The Sixth Sense and now Hereditary.
With zero recognition.
No, I know. I don't get it. I don't understand.
Oscar hates horror. Oscar hates horrors.
Yeah, they really do. And this movie it's a small thing. It's not like this sprawling type of thing. It's set within the context of this house in the surrounding little area around this house. And it's like, wow, he knows how to get the most out of the scenes, the scenery, the what's in the surrounding areas about within the house itself, the attic and the different places. I mean, great cinematography for something just set in a little wooded area in a house within the wood, a nice fancy house within the woods. Yeah. And but everybody in this movie is fantastic, and it's probably one of the best horror movies I've seen in a long, long time. And this guy, we'll talk about the other one later. So
yep, it's so interesting with this movie because the first time I saw it, when I was done with it, I was definitely unsettled, but I was like, was it worth the unset? Like, was it worth it? And it was like not until like 6 hours later when I'm still talking about it with everybody I went to see the movie with, where we all kind of stopped and we're like, hold on, we don't need to debate if this movie was great anymore. We're still talking about it. It's just, I mean, it is definitely really powerful. I'm not somebody who gets upset when an ending isn't exactly what I want. I respect when, filmmakers and their choices, and this one's no exception. I respect that he went through with the payment angle at the end and showed it all the way through. Like, I don't have a problem with that. Like, I think that, there's always a point where you cannot have to trust what's on screen for one, and, don't have to take it literally. That's one angle. Or two, it's a movie and this is the world we've set up, and this is the choice. Really good choice. I've definitely revisited this one. And I do have the other one that we'll be talking about soon.
All right, let's get to your number two.
My number two. Well, let's keep talking about Ari Aster. As I call him, Ari Master. It's Midsomar. This movie just, am one of these people I really related to it strongly. My number one will be the same. At the time when I saw it was a perfect, kind of perfect time for me to get the maximum impact from the movie. And with this, a lot of the, issues with, dealing with people saying they're there for you, during a time, kind of crisis, and they're not really there for you. Like, I just feel like that's kind of one of the worst types of lies or betrayals that people do on a regular basis when they're pretending to really be there for somebody and they're not, like Christian was in this movie. The entire time not telling her about going to Sweden till, a few weeks beforehand and everything like that. And it's just like after the tragedy that happens at the beginning, and it's just like we're really set up from the beginning. Again, sorry about the dogs in the background. They just have to be playing as I'm recording. It's just like we're set up with that really dramatic scene at the beginning with her family, and her sister calling her to, get help and be like, I, need someone here for me right now. And her sister just be like, okay, going through the motions. She's like, I'm going to hurt myself. I'm going to hurt other people, like sending the emails. We see all of it. It's set up. Then we finally see she goes through with it. It's we have the horrific mass murder-suicide scene, which I've never seen in a movie done that way. That just seemed like very realistic. I don't know if it was, but it shocks you immediately again, but this tragedy has just happened and we're fully set up. And then, Christian, played by Jack Rayner, who I hadn't seen since Sing Street, one of my favorite movies of all time, kind of playing a different role in this movie, for sure, than that. And it's just like, there's a lot of like kind of hateable characters. I get that, but they all get their comeuppance here. And when they get to Sweden, the color, the cinematography, the distillation that was representing psychedelics, I can tell you firsthand, that is what it's like. And it's just like, you've seen a lot of movies when psychedelics are used and like they use the warping effect. It's just like so over the top and gimmicky. And there's like, if you rewatch this movie and like you look at like her crown, you'll see like a certain flower starting to distort a little bit. And there's so many details in this movie when you pick it up. And just the amount of different issues it touches on, with this being a society where they believe that life comes in seasons of 18 years. And once you're 72, your life is done. And really, it's like, we are in a society where we kind of deny death the whole way through. And then there's many people who believe like, oh, let me be a vegetable. Let me be on a ventilator from 90 to 99 and not have a life, but I'm still alive. While these people are, when they're 72, jumping off a, cliff and killing themselves, which we're like, oh my God, but there's also a sense of completion and beauty, and maybe it's not that crazy actually. And these are all the thoughts that you have watching this movie. Meanwhile, it's like, is Danny justified? Is she not? we've all been in that position where we've wanted to, you know, make the choice. Do we forgive someone we're really mad at or burn them alive? And Danny makes the decision to burn him alive. And it's also like you understand her decision by the end of it because she has nobody at this point. This is her family now. If she didn't do that at that point and she just went back home where she has no friends, no family, no anything, no boyfriend now, like she kind of was committed. Like it's like crazy, yet you can understand that. And these are all the places Ari Aster puts you in mentally that I think a lot of people didn't know how to handle. So they laugh at scenes that they, you know, probably shouldn't have been laughing at. But I think a lot of times people will laugh in horror movies because they don't have the focus or they don't want to really go there mentally. And not a lot of things scare me either. It's definitely the psychological that gets to me more. And this movie did really scare me at how much I related to it and how much at times I was jealous of the main character. And that's like a really weird place to be in psychologically, but it really does take me there. I saw this movie in theaters 5 times. I don't think that I've seen another movie in theaters more times in the last 5 years than this one. And it was just like, it was just really, really incredible. And the amount of, you know, I can really tell Ari Aster was going through some shit when he wrote this movie because he brings it all, and it's not all pretty. A lot of it can be toxic. A lot of it can be, you know, ridiculed and justified, but it's real. Like it's real.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. In fact, my number 2 is Midsomar as well.
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to run over you like that, but yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you what a what a revelation Florence Pugh was in this movie. I mean, what a year she had. Yeah. It started out with this, and then it just, you know, it just had some other great performances. Little Women was in there. Yes. But the weirdest thing is you have this beautiful area in this country that's flowers and grass and hills and bright sunny day, and the most darkest stuff is going on. That's the irony about this film, is like he wants everybody, oh, it's Midsomar, it's beautiful, it's wonderful. No, it's not. No, it's Ari Aster. You should know better. Yep. That scene at the very beginning, wow, he waited to about a third of the way in the movie for Hereditary, didn't have the girl get decapitated. This one, nope, right away you're gonna get the death of the people.
Yep. And you get the Ari Aster camera flip when she goes into the airplane, which was also in, you know, Hereditary. I love when directors have their trademark kind of camera move, and I know he's not the first one to do it, but he clearly enjoys that inverse kind of camera flip, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like this guy gets. I mean, him and Jordan Peele right now, it seems like, are the only 2 people, maybe even, you know, the guy that did the It movies, the first It, not the second It, but there's hardly anybody these days that really, David Eggers is kind of, but it's like this new renaissance of horror movie the last 5 or 6 years. And because I'll be honest with you, I was really depressed about the horror genre for a long, long time, until like The Conjuring started bringing stuff together, and then all these A24 films started coming around, and you say to myself, we have this renaissance of horror movies. It's these new voices, these new directors, these new writers, and they're bringing this once great genre back to the forefront again. And it's great to see people like Ari Aster get these opportunities and deliver on these opportunities and really make these cringeworthy, really just movies where people are talking about them afterwards for days and days on end. People like yourself that are seeing them multiple times. Then they're going back for the extended edition and all this stuff. But yeah, I these 2 movies, I really didn't want to do a filmmaker on here twice, but I couldn't.
He deserves it.
I couldn't resist having Ari Aster on here twice. It just, in my opinion, and me not being a big horror fan, these two movies really stood out of the hierarchy of A24 Films, and so I said, no, I'm going to put them on there. I just, which one I like more, and I ended up liking Midsomar a little bit more than Hereditary. But
yeah, I'm with you, man.
So that's why Midsomar was my number 2. But we're going to get into some honorable mentions. Just not go into a whole thing about it, but just kind of mention some that you have, and I'll do the same.
Definitely.
Talk about some of the same ones.
Yeah, definitely. Most recently, Uncut Gems, definitely one of my favorites. I am Jewish, so this is the most Jewish movie in the history of movies. So it really, really is. There's just like little lines, but I can't get into it now. But Killing of a Sacred Deer, really, really enjoyed that one. That's another great horror movie for sure. Yeah, like there's just so many, but Krisha is one I really want to mention that just missed. It was almost my 5. It was Trey Edward Schultz's first directorial feature, made for $30,000 in his like family home. Most of the people in it aren't actual actors, and I love when that works, like Chloe Zhao's done in Nomadland. But that's why I just like to mention, because not enough people have seen it. Particularly if you have experience with family members with addiction, that movie's going to destroy you. So Krisha, I definitely want to mention, was my number 6.
My number 6, and one I had to take off my list at the last minute, is Trey Edward Schultz's last film, Waves.
Nice.
I have coached sports. I've been around athletes, and I've been around families with athletes, and this family just was like so realistic to me in this movie, about the father being this guy that wanted his son to be great at something, and the son trying to live up to the expectations.
Sterling K. Brown in this movie. Whew.
I mean, wow. I mean, I freaking love it. And once again, another movie with cinematography that's just breathtaking.
Both parts,
making a movie.
Part 1 and Part 2 are just so. I love the completion. Yeah, this is a great choice.
Yeah. You mentioned some already, but The Last Black Man in San Francisco, very different film. But like I said earlier, A24 doesn't like hold back. It goes in so many different directions, so many genres, so many people of walks of life they focus on. And this is a real small little story that brought us 2 up-and-coming actors and storytellers and filmmakers that we're going to be seeing a lot of, and we have with Jonathan Majors of recently. He's going to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's just such a different little type of thing. I love how A24 champions so many of these little small voices and these different voices that do these different things. In Fabric, I saw this at midnight at the Florida Film Festival about 2 years ago. It didn't come out till like the following November. It's about a killer dress. I mean,
great. I love this movie.
It's just a killer dress. And what a wacky premise, a movie about a killer dress. Yeah. Good Time. Oh my God. Yep. Uncut Gems, Good Time. Another filmmaker that they've worked with. Good Time is coming up. I mean, Robert Pattinson has been doing some good stuff before that, but really the movie that really got people off the stupid Twilight train is Good Time, that he could show what he could do as an actor. So I loved Good Time, and the Safdie brothers were amazing. The Florida Project,
nice,
right up the road for me, probably about an hour away from where I live, in the backdrop of Disney, this depressing world of this hotel and these kids and this. It's just like it's right around the corner from Disney, the happiest place on earth. Yet this hotel is such a depressing, awful place for these kids to be growing up in and stuff. Willem Dafoe, another guy who gets robbed of an Oscar win, should have won for that.
And Lighthouse.
Yeah, I mean, and Lady Bird. What can you say about Lady Bird? I mean, I love Lady Bird, so I put Lady Bird on here as an honorable mention. So I had a bunch of honorable mentions. There's so many great 20.
We could keep going for another 20. Yeah, like you got to cut it off at some point. But yeah.
So I made my points that I'm cutting it off at 10. So
that's fair. That's fair.
All right. So needless to say, on our honorable mentions, now we're going to get to our number ones. Aaron, take it away.
This, to me, this is my favorite movie ever. This is my favorite movie of all time. And it's not the best movie ever. It's not perfect. I acknowledge all of the flaws in it, but I will never forget the first time I saw this movie. It was the day after getting out of like the worst relationship I'll ever be in my life. And I was back home with my mom. My mom sees like no movies in theaters ever, like ever. So, but she's like, Aaron, let's go to a movie. Like, you know, like I was just sitting at home being depressed in front of my mom. And she's like, you know, like my mom can't see that. So I'm like, all right. And like, I look and there's just like some Fast and Furious movie, like a bunch of action shit. I'm like, I'm not going to see this with my mom. I was like, there's this movie with like a black and white poster, Colin Farrell's in it. It's called The Lobster. I guess let's go see that. And that's my favorite movie of all time. And that's the look on a lot of people's faces when I bring up this movie. I love this movie. I thought this movie was painfully hilarious, brilliant. Yorgos Lanthimos is a master. Yorgos Lanthimos is one of my favorite directors alive. Everything he does, I think, is amazing. When he writes, he has a way of writing his characters to where it feels like they're aliens pretending to be humans acting in movies, and it's very awkward. It's very dry in some senses. It's very bleak. And just it's basically living in a world where it's illegal to be single. And that was fully where I was feeling. When you get out of the relationship, you think you're going to be with the person the rest of your life. This is the person it's going to be, and it gets so bad. And now you're single. It feels illegal to be single, especially when you're newly single. Like it feels like everybody knows you're single. No one else is single. And like everything in life, you need like a partner to do. Like I can't go and, you know, and it's like in this, it's just taken to that nth degree with Yorgos Lanthimos, where he's like, yeah, you're literally going to be in a world where like there's police going around being like, where's your relationship? Like proof of relationship. And like, you can't be out in the world single. And like, you have to go to this hotel where you have 40 days to find a partner. And if you don't, you turn into the animal of your choosing. It's so absurd and surreal. I'm a huge fan of surreal kind of work. And it's just like one of these movies. John C. Reilly puts on an amazing performance in it. It's just like at one point he gets in trouble for masturbating in there and he has to put his hand in a toaster. It's just like, it's so absurd. And then it has some of the most dark, scariest moments in a movie that I can remember, when the woman with the cookies jumps out of the window after Colin Farrell's character stands her up, and you just hear her screaming and see the blood. And it's just like, I mean, it is just like, it is very, very, there's so much symbolism in the movie, and just, it's so metaphorical into just how people conceal who they truly are to get into this, you know, situation where they can have somebody. And it's just like, I acknowledge the second half isn't as great as the first half, but it's just one of these movies where I still think that the second half makes a ton of great points because, you know, it is, and it's just, I don't know, it's just one of these movies. After I left it in 2015, that's when I became obsessed with A24. I didn't know what A24 was before that. I walked out of that movie. I made a Facebook status. I didn't even have Instagram or Twitter at this point. Made a Facebook status that just said, The Lobster is the best movie I've ever seen in my entire life. I can't believe what I just saw. It just blew my mind. I'd never seen a movie like this in my life, and definitely encouraged me to become the cinephile I am today. I don't think I was before this movie. You know, and so maybe if it's one I came to in 2021, maybe it wouldn't. Maybe I would have been like, oh, like I've seen this. But I had never seen anything like that movie when I saw it. And I just had never felt a movie validate my deep, deep personal feelings about something so much like this movie. And it was therapeutic. It was everything. This movie is like as close to a religious experience as I've ever had with a movie. And it's my favorite movie. It's not everybody. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm not saying it's perfect. None of the above. But for me, it's my favorite movie ever.
Yeah, you're not alone. I know some people that absolutely love The Lobster. I myself am not the biggest fan of Lobster, but I do respect Yorgos Lanthimos. for doing something different and not doing something, a cookie cutter thing that everybody else is doing. And he's proven that he knows what he's doing as a filmmaker. He's getting Best Picture nominated films, getting his actors getting nominated for Academy Awards and so forth. So he knows what he's doing. He does a great job what he's doing. And this is a movie that does relate to some people. It didn't relate to me, and it was a little bit out there for me personally. But I always quote John Campea, and anybody that's in this community knows who John Campea is. All film is subjective. And just because it's not something that is interesting to me doesn't mean it's not interesting to you or somebody else out there. And that's what's great about film, music, sports, books, for TV shows. It's all subjective. And that's why we love movies so much, is because everybody gets something different out of various different movies. Something I love, you probably aren't going to love. You already brought up, one of my favorite movies of all time, Goodfellas. I freaking can watch Goodfellas over and over and over again.
Well, I didn't mean that with disrespect. I like Goodfellas fine, of course. I just want the fellas out there to take an afternoon and watch 20th Century Women once in a while, too. You can get some beers with the boys and watch 20th Century Women. You can't touch with those feelings.
Yeah. But, so, no, that's one of the things about the Top 5 Weekly is I want to champion new films and films that maybe somebody hasn't heard of, or maybe they haven't watched, but then they hear you talk about The Lobster, and then they go out looking for The Lobster, and they want to go watch The Lobster, or they want to go watch 20th Century Woman. And that's why I do this show.
Yeah, I might feel like protective about The Lobster, since it is like such an important movie for my entire movie experience. It really was. I mean, but it's just, I feel like the detractors are so much louder about this movie than the fans. I feel like the people who dislike The Lobster are much louder about, but maybe that's just me being defensive. I just feel like most of the time when I bring it up, especially because I always set it up in high regard, like it's one of my favorite movies of all time. So then right away when I say The Lobster, almost always people are like, wow, like that's the one. Like
it's kind of like with me in Tom Brady. I love freaking Tom Brady to death. But the detractors seem like they're trying to outweigh me from being a fan of Tom Brady.
Yeah, so I guess anytime you bring up the GOAT, talk or whatever it is. But yeah, this is completely subjective. And then, Rachel Weisz, one of my first crushes from Mummy 99. Now to see her in something like this, and that last scene when I just love ambiguity in my endings, and it being an ambiguous ending. We don't know if he takes out his eyes or if he lies or if he just it's the entire crux of the themes of the movies of do we lie or are we ourselves, and when do we stop lying and start being ourselves in a relationship, and what does that cost us in the relationship? It's just and Yorgos is just such a weirdo. I love it. I just love it.
It's got levels on top of levels. You're absolutely right. My number, of course your number one is this film. But thing is, when I saw this film, I saw it November 2nd of the year that it came out. I saw it before it had gotten any of the kind of praise and all the kind of things that happened involving this film. I saw it, and I was absolutely blown away by the filmmaker, blown away by the performances. And my number one is Moonlight. Naomi Harris is incredible as a crack addict mom with this little kid running around, and then this kind of the savior type of figure. Mahershala Ali brings him. He's bringing him into the ocean. We see this kind of the priest giving you the old what's that called?
Baptism.
But baptism and stuff. So it's he's like the savior of this little boy, and then the bullying stuff and the middle school stuff that's going on that's tough, and then how it ends with Andre Holland and stuff at the end, and I mean, Barry Jenkins came onto the scene with Moonlight, and he became a filmmaker that whatever he does, if he's got someone cleaning bathrooms and cleaning a freaking floor and washing dishes, I'll watch it. I will watch it because it's Barry Jenkins. This movie is an absolute masterpiece. And I don't use masterpiece lightly. The cinematography, once again, another movie takes place in Miami that uses the lighting and the ocean and the trees and the sky to its advantage and the lights of the buildings and stuff. It's just a gorgeous movie in so many ways. And it just shows you that happiness isn't an easy thing to find in life. And sometimes you can find happiness in the most unbelievable places. You don't know what you are as a person. Sometimes you need to grow up and go through some ups and downs in your life before you find out who you are. And there's a lot of different messages about love and about family and about home and all these different things. What do these things mean? Do they all have straight, narrow lines? No, they don't. They're very ambiguous as far as the lines of love and family and home and what you accept in all these types of things. And Barry Jenkins, he came on the scene with this, and he'll always be connected, even though he won Best Picture and Damien Chazelle won Best Director that year. Those two will ever be linked together the rest of history, La La Land and Moonlight. And I, for one, think it's a great thing because I loved both films.
Together they make a pretty beautiful picture.
Yeah, they really do. They do make a great picture together, the two of them together, about two variations of love and family and home and all those types of things, one in California, one in Miami. And it's great that happened to those two films that year, in a year that really was a year that was a tough year for the country, and trying to find just a message for.
And you saw how excited, not that this is about the movie, but you saw how excited the La La Land, like when they said it's a mistake, it's Moonlight. They were like as excited, like they wanted to, like it was just, it was a kind of a beautiful moment of unity. And, one thing we've talked about with so many A24 films is, again, it's representing a group of people, African Americans, and homosexuality that is never represented in Hollywood film ever. It's very taboo within the communities themselves, frankly. So it's like Barry Jenkins wanted this to be broached, and it's a very important subject that since then I think has changed a lot, has helped affect a lot of change within these communities more so than before.
Hollywood,
exactly, and representing it, exactly, the representation of it, the comfort of it. Yeah, it's just it's something that isn't discussed in movies enough.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And for an A24 movie to win Best Picture, that really shows the quality of their films, the quality of their actors, their directors, their cinematographers. And I'm telling you, they're going to be around for a long time to come, and they're going to keep making or buying up little filmmakers, champion new filmmakers, and so forth.
Yep.
And that's why shows like ours are going to keep doing episodes on A24, because
I talk about A24 all day long. When A24 is brought up, I'm called, and I'm happy to talk about them. I can talk about them all day. It was fun to talk about them here. And
I was really glad to have you, Aaron. Where can you be found as far as your?
Yeah, definitely. You can find me on Twitter at Aaron Jay Brooks. I'm always there. I do a few podcasts as well. The movie podcast is Digesting Cinema with Christina V of Schmodown fame now, and myself. What we're doing is we're taking the Featured Presentation Productions Letterbox Challenge. It's 52 weeks, 52 subjects, and we're doing each week we're tackling a movie. So we've gone through the decades so far. We just did a silent movie for our last one, so we tackled 1924's Girl Shy, the first romantic comedy. So Christina and I talked for like an hour about a silent film, and it was her first silent film, and we actually both really liked it. But it's a really fun podcast. We're having guests on and everything like that now, so looking forward to having everybody on. But yeah, Digesting Cinema, that's where you can find, and it's on all major podcast platforms.
You can find me at disappointmentmedia.com. This is disappointmentmedia.com, where I write for this website. I'm a film critic for them. Also, my own personal blog, I write movie reviews from the fourth row at wordpress.com. And bringing back my 2 shows that I've been doing over the years, the Top 5 Weekly, which you're watching right now. It's going to be doing all new episodes. And in the summer, my sports movie show that I do called Bleacher Features, where myself and a guest talk about a sports movie. So if you're interested in being on either of these shows, just message me on Facebook Messenger. So for Aaron and myself, good night.
See ya.